Shalom, Shalom Israel. I am the brother Yawana from the Great Millstone, Arizona camp, coming back at y'all with Lord's will, another edifying lesson. First and foremost, as always, before I start, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and infinite glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rechach Warash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers. Shalom to you brothers pushing and teaching His truth across the four winds of this earth. And as always, peace, blessings, and many salutations be to you, sincere Akyam, wa Akwath, you brothers along with you few sisters who are giving all diligence in these last days. All right, through the mercy and grace of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, through His only beloved begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, I'm back once again with another walk and talk video. And, this video is going to be, a testimony, of, something that took place on my, in my walk, all right, years ago. All right, and reason why I thought to do a lesson on it today, years later, is because I came home, and my mom had told me a story that was being broadcasted on the news of a boy, or he was a man, was grinding every day, working super hard to make to be at a place where he can take care of his mom, and they lived in two different states. He's grinding and making sure he can get her down to where he's at, take care of her eventually. And he had went on a hike, on South Mountain, here, Phoenix, South Mountain. It's a pretty, I wouldn't say it's one of the easiest hikes, but it definitely takes, some endurance. All right, very jagged, hills and cliffs, thorn bushes everywhere. But nevertheless, he had went hiking and he fell 40 feet to his death, And the reason why I'm bringing up that story, is because it had hit home for me personally. Because years ago, when I first came into the knowledge, I had probably my first year and a half, I was super zealous for the truth, not following the greatest leaders. It was just part of the process of when you first come in. You get good for a while and the Lord starts sending judgments on you and you start to see, the different things that happen to you, as the Lord, intervening in your life. And in that particular day, when I was hiking years ago, I had fell down the mountain too. And the reason why I wanted to even put it into a lesson is again because I had seen, or my mom had told me what was being broadcasted on the news, a man in the same situation, all right, who had fell and died down the same mountain that I fell and rolled down as well. All right, but the Lord preserved me. And I remember when I had stood up on my feet, the only thing I kept saying to myself was, well, Lord, what did I do? What did I do? Because I knew that, I did something to receive that type of a judgment. And, the Lord's so cold that the Lord will play back in your mind all the wrong that you were choosing to do, but that you ignore the signs of knowing that it's, wrong. The Lord will play it back in your mind like a movie and you'll understand. And at that time, again, this is years ago when I first came into the knowledge, having super zeal for a while, but, starting to fall back, starting to falter, as we all did when we first came in. You were super zealous and then might have had a period where, you started to fade a little bit, but then the Lord fired you back up again. That's how it is within this truth, man. All right. But at that time, first coming in, man, I started faltering a little too much and the Lord sent that judgment upon me. And it's always been something to remember, okay, that, for us who are on the faith, okay, to fear, all right, and to truly every day, to the best of our ability, walk in obedience unto the Lord, okay, because as the scriptures say, we're going to grab it. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, and verse 13. It says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter, fear Yahweh and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. And I even, I remember when I had rolled down the mountain, and I had finally stopped rolling, I just remember I stood up on my feet, and I looked at my hands, and as I'm saying, man, Lord, what did I do? And I'm looking at my hands, I looked to my right hand, and my thumb was completely facing over the top side of my hand, to where I had to snap it back into place. Then I'm not saying these things to make myself seem like anybody. It's just that's what happened. That's what can happen to any of us if we don't remain obedient, man, and understand that this is the whole mission, man, to fear the Lord and keep His commandments, man, to keep the things that are written in this book. Because at the end of the day, that's all that truly matters. All right? And being that we've gotten the knowledge of this truth, well, we're going to see what the scriptures say, all right, concerning that. Okay, because the scriptures say in Hebrews, the 10th chapter, that it is a fearful thing to fall into the hands of the living power. All right, once you fall into the Lord's hands, there's no telling what's going to happen to you, man. Once you get on the Lord's bad side, right? Bear with me. 2 Peter chapter 2 and verse 19. It says, while they promise them liberty, they themselves are the servants of corruption, for of whom a man is overcome, of the same is he brought in bondage. It says, for if after they have escaped the pollution of the world through the knowledge of the Lord Yahushua, through the knowledge of the Lord and Savior Yahushua Mashiach, they are again entangled therein and overcome, the latter end is worse with them than the beginning. You see that? So you come into this truth, you know, you're being washed through the water of the word. You're being cleansed by taking heed unto the scripts and applying them to your life. Your mindset's starting to change, your walk is starting to change. All right, you might even change the way you eat, change the way that you take care of yourself. Okay, and these are all, you know, things that start to transpire, right, as the Spirit continues to work in you, man. You know, but so you come into this thing and you're getting equipped, okay, with strength, right, and armor. Well, if you are to get entangled again within the old habits and, you know, the bad mindsets that you used to have, the bad crowds that people used to follow, the bad vices that you used to give your mind to, all right, which ultimately would drown you, man. You're not giving in moderation. You see, now you turn back to that from that holy life. Now you're worse off than you were at the start. All right. It says, for it had been better for them not to have known the way of righteousness, than after they have known it, to turn from the holy commandment delivered unto them. But it has happened unto them according to the true proverb, the dog is turned to his own vomit again, and the soul that was washed to her wallowing in the mire. See that? The dog is turned to its vomit again. See, because you vomited up all the filthiness of this world and the works of darkness. You know, the Lord, you know, caused you to be reborn again. All right, and you become new to what, you know, what the right way is. Right, and you don't go back, and you try your best to fight to not go back to those old ways, as the scriptures say, mortify thy members. Okay, okay, cast off that old man. Okay, it's a daily, you know, effort to do just that. Okay, because neither one of us, all right, you know, as Apostle Paul says, you know, wants to preach to others and ourselves be castaways. You know, and going back to the story, you know, the testimony, I should say, that I gave concerning my a situation that happened on my path, man. It's all orchestrated by the Lord, man. If you don't walk right and especially if you have this truth, you know, you're going to be severely punished. Okay, because now you are held, right, to a higher standard. And we're going to prove that in the book of Luke, chapter 12. Just a couple of scriptures. You know, like I said, I was really meditating on that story, man. It's, you know, the same mountain that I, you know, fell and rolled down and almost, you know, died on with, you know, another boy, right, in the same situation as me. He's coming down the mountain, fell, and 40 feet to his death. You know, and I just remember at that time, you know, maybe a couple months before, you know, the incident, I wasn't living, you know, as right as I should have been, man. You know, Scripture say, confess thy faults one to another that you may be healed. All right, you know, and that was something that, you know, I went through. And, you know, every day, almost every other day, I'm just thinking about that. You know, we all have moments like that in our walk. You know, the Lord sends fear in us so that we remain obedient and understand what happens if we don't. You see, because the Lord wants us all, you know, to receive blessings, and the Lord has great things prepared, but he also wants us to stay disciplined. He also wants us to know that this is the only way to go. There is no other choice. And once you have that mindset, that's what the Lord's pleased with, man. Someone that's all for him, and anything that's not, you know, it's either cast off, right, or not even looked, you know, upon. But this is Luke chapter 12. All right, bear with me. I think I passed it. Luke chapter 12 and verse 43, it says, blessed is that servant whom his Lord, when he cometh, shall find so doing. Of a truth I say unto you, that he will make him ruler over all that he hath. All right, you know, the scriptures say, man knoweth not his time, right? Pursuant to Ecclesiastes 9 and 12. Meaning nobody knows when their expiration date is, when it's their time to pass from this earth to, you know, to the spiritual realm. You know, or as we know, when you die. Nobody knows when that day is. And I remember I remember there was a child, right? Years ago I was working at this shop, and it was a child. He had walked in, and he was dressed up as Spider-Man. I think it was his birthday or something. He was real happy, with the suit, you could tell. And he had just told me, randomly, I was like, hey, what's up, Spider-Man? He's cool. And then he just says, you know what? You know what's crazy, mister? Or something like that. And I'm like, what's that? Young man, And he was like, every day or every year, when your birthday is, when it's coming up, and when it's time. He's like, but you never know the time that you're going to die, and you could pass it every day or pass it, today. And I was like, man, that's like a little ass kid, man, out of the mouth of babes, as the scriptures say. That was a very profound message. In other words, you always know when your day, you always know when your birthday is and the day that you're born into the world, but you don't know the day that you're gonna go, man. So you got to live wisely, and that's the point. All right, scriptures say, pass the sojourning of your time here in fear. Okay, what do Yahweh Shai tell his disciples? He said, occupy till I come. Right, we're supposed to be kept busy and doing, what is required of us from Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, because at any moment the Lord could take our spirit, man. Right, the Lord could take back what is His, because really our spirits, are owned by Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai. That's why one of his titles is the Father of Spirits. See, Luke chapter 12 and verse 45. And if that servant say in his heart, my Lord delayeth his coming, it says, and shall begin to beat the men servants and maidens, and to eat and drink and to be drunken, the Lord of that servant will come in a day when he looketh not for him, and at an hour when he is not aware, and will cut him in sunder, and will appoint him his portion with the unbelievers. And that servant which knew his Lord's will and prepared not himself, neither did according to his will, shall be beaten with many stripes. See that? A lot of our people know what they need to do, but they're not properly doing the things that they need to do. Everybody knows what they need to do, but they don't want to do it. All right, being that, a lot of our people have known His truth, they known the name of the Lord, they known the right doctrine and the right men to follow, and they refuse. Well, they're going to be beaten with many stripes, and Lord willing, we don't fall into that number, all right, but of those that be spared, all right, and not punished. It says, but he that knew not and did commit things worthy of stripes shall be beaten with few stripes, for unto whomsoever much is given, of him shall much be required. See, we brought this out, at Sunday's camp, all right? Whatever is given unto you, man, the Lord is requiring that of you. And really, every single one of us, the Lord has blessed immensely by even allowing us to understand His knowledge. So what does the Lord require out of us? All right, well, let's get it. This is the book of Micah, chapter 6, and go down a little bit, select. Here we go. Here it is. Micah chapter 6 and verse 8. He hath showed thee, O man, what is good. See, the Lord has showed us what is good, and the word is good. All right, the word is light. Right, it's known as the doctrine of life, the teaching of life. Okay, the scriptures. Right, instructions on the earth on what to, as they say, basic instructions before leaving earth. Right, the acronym Bible. All right, or the word Bible, right, the acronym BIBLE, basic instructions before leaving earth. Right, instructions on what to do, on how to properly, walk in a way that the Lord approves of, man. Which that's not a mindset that the world has. They don't care what the Lord thinks because they don't even believe He exists. But since we know and understand that He exists, we have that fear and we reverence Him in our life while we walk upon the earth. Okay, because He has showed us what is good, man. Right, so that's why the scripture is also saying, Baruch, we are happy, O Israel, for the things that are made pleasing unto the Lord have been made known unto us. Right. It says, and what doeth the Lord Yahweh require of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy power. That's what the Lord requires of us, man. Right, to do justly, right, to love mercy, or to walk humbly. Okay, especially knowing that tomorrow is not promised. That's a very common saying within the world. You even hear it in the movies, but it's truly not, man. Okay, and we're actually gonna get that in the book of James. Right, bear with me. All right, go to it says James, on the second chapter, fourth chapter. Here we go, James chapter 4 and verse 13. It says, go to now Ye that say today or tomorrow we will go into such a city and continue there a year, and buy and sell and get gain. Whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow. See that? We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. Right? For what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeareth for a little time, and then vanisheth away. For that ye ought to say, if the Lord will, we shall live and do this or that. See that? So we always just say, Lord willing. That's why we always say, if it's the Lord's will, we'll do this, we'll go here, we'll travel there, we'll have this job, we'll be able to take care of this responsibility, help this individual out here at this time. It's all in the Lord's plan. All right? And really his plan is playing out every day, and we don't necessarily always understand or know what's going to happen within it, but it's just our job to trust it, man. Right? And pray that, as each day passes, we continue, right, to walk in a way, right, that is, approved and accepted. That's all that matters at the end of the day, man. How much money you have and how much wealth you have, the Lord doesn't care about that. How many likes you got on Instagram and followers on TikTok. Okay? The scriptures say that righteousness delivereth from death. Right? The very thing that people look down upon in this whole world, the scriptures, those are the very things that the Lord said to keep, which is going to preserve your soul. Okay? Matter of fact, this is just a couple quick scriptures. Proverbs chapter 3 and verse 1, it says, my son, forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments. Yeah, your mind, right? That word heart translates to your mind. Allow your mind to meditate upon the words of the scriptures, man, which will allow for strength and peace to flow into your spirit. Okay? You see, but once you don't be locked in to the scriptures and locked into prayer, right, and the spiritual side, right, of what the Lord requires of you, you'll start to fade, giving into the flesh. Right? Your flesh is going to start to rule over you, man. Right? If you don't allow your mind to be filled with light. See? If you don't allow your mind to be filled with things of light, the darkness of this world is going to completely consume it. It says, for length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee. See that? Length of days, right? Long life and peace. And who doesn't desire these things? Let not mercy and truth forsake thee. Bind them about thy neck. Write them upon the tables of thine heart. So shalt thou find favor and good understanding in the sight of God. And man, you see that? You find favor in this world, man. But with the Lord, as the scriptures say in Sirach the 35th chapter, he that serveth the Lord shall be accepted with favor. And really even, looking and going back to the testimony that I gave at the beginning of this video, the Lord sent judgment, but he also sent mercy, right? And a lesson within the adversity. Okay, a lesson in the affliction. You see, so there's always two ways to look at things. Really it's, now it serves me as a motivator to continue to move forward and not give up. Okay, because if we do give up, man, the Lord's going to, the Lord might not just kill you, man. He might have something bad happen to you while you live and you're in constant pain every day, every night. You see, so if you don't want that, man, and you want to find good favor, then, like I said, man, don't let these words, leave your heart, your mind, or bind them and tie them as laces upon your feet, upon your spirit. All right? Because, this truth is real, man. The Lord is real, and his judgments are very real, and they're happening every single second of the day, even throughout the night where we're being kept safe. Like, even another quick testimony, I remember the last place I lived, there was it was an apartment complex, and there was two ways to get in and out. And I live pretty close to the back gate, so I'd always go out to that back gate because it leads to like a neighborhood, nice and quiet, pretty peaceful. And mind you, I'm going out that back gate every night, and even there, there was a shooting at one time, and that same night before, because I basically could have been caught in the crosshairs. Because I always go through that gate. And that night I had got back late. I think I was coming from work, and I was going to take a quick walk like I always do before I went to sleep. And I just remember something heavy saying, "Don't do it, don't do it, don't do it." And I was, you know what? Maybe it's a spirit. Let me not go. So I went home. I showered, ate, slept, just to wake up and walk out that back gate in the morning. And there was like people standing around. There was flowers and candles, and someone had just got shot and died that same night. Maybe 10 minutes after, I had went inside. So it's just those things, man, that the Lord does to always remind you how precious, how precious this truth is, man. How precious your life is being in the truth and having it in your possession. Scriptures say we have treasure in these earthen vessels, man. You see, so we are to walk in extreme gratitude every single day. Okay, because the Lord sent His gift, and it's our job to fight, to continue to maintain and sustain within it. So, Lord willing, this lesson was edifying to you, sincere Akim wa Akwath. Before I close off, I actually want to get one more scripture, right? The book of Joshua, the first chapter. Select. I'm trying to. It's kind of bright out here on my screen. Joshua chapter 1 and verse 8. It says, "This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make that way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success." See that? If you want to become prosperous and have good success in your life, man, and you want things to turn around, man, the best thing to do is to seek the Lord, man. That's where you're gonna get the healing. That's where you're gonna find the answers that you've been looking for and only having questions to. All right, more confusion. It says, "Have not I commanded thee? Be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed. For the Lord Yahweh thy God is with thee, whithersoever thou goest." You see that? When you serve the Lord, man, you're dwelling, within the secret place of the Almighty. You have that hedge, all right, around you, like those angels of protection from the evil forces out on this world, man. All right, there's many evil forces at work. We just can't see them, but best believe they're around, because as it's written, the devil, as a roaring lion, seeketh and roameth about whom he may devour. He's always looking for his next victim. Okay, the next weak spirit to give in to lust and temptation, or to give in the fight and stop and throw in the towel. Right, so when you serve the Lord, man, the Lord's with you whithersoever you go. Lord walking with you as you go to the store, as you go to work and you come back from work to home. Right, the Lord got angels probably hovering right above you. You can't see. All right, but as soon as you leave this truth, all right, that's where bad things will happen to you, man. I don't have the Apocrypha on his phone, Salakia, but Baruch 4:1. Right, this is the book of the commandments of the Most High. All that keepeth shall come to life, but such as leaveth shall die. When you keep these words, man, good things and blessings are brought forth into your life, although you go through adversity and hardship, because that's part of the process as the Lord tests you to, and puts you through trial before the blessing. You're going to go through those things, but, the Lord is going to send blessings. The Lord's not always just going to crush you and make you feel low. All right, it's only for a season. And then at the end, you understand it was all for a reason. You see? But that's it. That's all I had through the Spirit. I do hope and pray that this lesson was edifying to you, sincere Akim Akwath, who tuned in. Thawadi Habashim Yahushai for allowing me to do this lesson. And Lord willing, to the next time, I'd like to give all praise, honor, and infinite glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim Rechach Kodash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers. Shalom to you, brothers, pushing and teaching this truth. Until next time, Lord's will, I say shalom, stay strong, and keep the faith no matter what. Shalom.